Hello team, today's challenge is Truncate the Text 2, which is different from one that happened on February 4th, I believe, called Truncate the Text. In that one, we took the string, reduced it down to a certain number of characters, and then added the ellipses, the dot, dot, dot. In this one, we actually have the extra challenge of widths for all these different characters. So the width of an I is very different than the width of a capital W, right? Kind of variable text, I guess. But we're going to have to figure this out, which means that we're going to use this to access these widths and then tally it up, figure out where that ending mark is of 50 units, and kick it out the door, okay? There is a little bit of extra stuff in here with spaces and periods that we'll have to take care of. That should be pretty easy. I don't know why they didn't just put them in here, right? And that's what we'll do in a few seconds. And then there's also a call out about 50 and 60. At least at the time of this recording, they have these two things, but this second measurement, this 60, is a mistake. And it's important to say that. Like I suspect that they originally had this set to 60 and 60 here. And so they went in and changed that to 50, but they missed this one. If you try to get 60 working in your code, none of your tests will work. I tried it. It doesn't work, okay? So everything that we're going to do is going to be based off of that 50 because I'm pretty sure that this was just an error. Somebody fat fingers 6 instead of 5. It happens, right? It happens. So with that, let's go create our reference object. I'm going to copy this, bring it over here, and get to work. Now I'm going to call this, I'm going to spell it right here, measures, okay? Measures seems like a good name. It's going to be an object. We're going to paste all that in, bump it in, and this space between the key and the value. Notice how it's a little arrow. It might be hard to see because the contrast is funny here, but that's a tab character, okay? We don't want to use tab characters, so we can multi-select those. In fact, you'll see some of those are wider because tabs are a flexible unit, right? But if we add a space like this, now they are all the same length. The key here is that we need to back arrow, okay? And then add a colon to this to make sure that it works as an object, okay? Which also means that we need a final comma on all of those lines. And this is the object that we're going to use. Actually, it's not, because we need to take care of that period, which I believe goes here, and the space, which goes here. Yeah, the dot is 1, the space is 2, so right like this. We have that space in there, we have that dot in there, and everything should just line up. There is a huge assumption here. Okay, if you get something like this during an interview or you're asked to do something like this for professional work, what is the fallback? Okay, and that's very important because when we go searching in here, if we pass in, say, emojis or multi-byte characters like Chinese characters, right? They aren't going to show up in here because we haven't accounted for them. So where do they belong? Even numbers, right? Or other punctuation. What is that default? Okay. For today, the way that our tests are set up doesn't really matter that much. But in real life, it absolutely does, okay? So be aware of that. Be aware that you probably need something extra here. I can't tell you what that is because our tests don't account for that. But again, be aware, okay? With this done, we can start to build stuff. Now, I'm going to use a for loop, okay? Right here, we have let letter of string, okay? And we're going to do stuff. Now I'm using a for loop for 2 reasons. The first is that I can break from this, right? So I don't need to loop through every letter of the string. I just need to get to whatever that 50 is, right? And stop. So if there are extra letters, I don't need to loop on that. That's wasted time, wasted data, wasted everything, okay? The other thing is that notice how we didn't have to turn string into an array? Well, for loops let us do that because strings by themselves are iterable. Usually in a lot of these challenges, I use something like reduce or map or something like that. All of those are higher order functions that need an array. We don't need an array here, so we can skip that, okay? And get the benefit of being able to break early. which is very hard to do on those higher order functions. That's why I'm using it. So right here, I need some variables. I'm going to call this count. Okay. So we're going to roll this up. It's going to start at 0. And right here, I'm going to call this truncated string and set it equal to an empty string. Okay. Down here, I need to, inside of this loop, I need to get the value for that letter. Okay. Which is a little bit tricky because, hey, we have strings, not just individual values, right? Well, with this, we can do a key, which should give you a hint of what's coming. Okay, we're going to go object.keys. We're going to send in measures. And then from there, we are going to do a find on the measure where we check if measure includes, okay, measure dot includes letter, okay? Because of the way that our tests are, we're always going to find something. So once it hits that I, it returns 1 and it stops, okay? That's going to be, or actually it just returns this whole string, right? So it returns that, which means that we need something else in here, which is value equals measures key. Yes, okay. Quick call out here because somebody asked in chat, right? Somebody asked about this in chat recently. They made the comment that I don't do a lot of inlining, right? So I don't inline my functions very much. I usually take this and do a return like this. There's no harm to this, okay? So if you prefer this, I prefer this because it's more readable, right? I can read the find and I can see the function in here and see what's, it tells me directly. It's like, this is the thing being returned, right? So no magic assignments or anything like that. But if you prefer it as an inline thing, you absolutely can, okay? And the only reason that I did it inline was so that I could make that comment, okay? But right here, we get that done, we get the value, and now we can decide whether, what we're gonna do. The default down here is going to be to increment the count. So let's go get that. That's going to be plus equals value, okay? And to increment or to append the truncated string, okay? So plus equals letter like this, brilliant. But before that, we need a conditional, okay? So right here, we do some stuff. We take that count, we add the current value, and we make sure that it is less than the truncated length, or the length minus 3. Now we haven't taken care of that, right? So where to put that? I like to put it right here. Okay, I was kind of hovering over it with my mouse, but we're going to call that trunk length, set it equal to 50, just like this, and now we can use that, okay? Trunk length minus 3, okay? So if the count, the count plus the new value is greater than the truncated length minus 3, then we need to stop, right? So we need to break. But before that, we should probably add our ellipses, right? So right here we have the truncated string, just like this, plus equals dot, dot, dot. Now, before moving on, actually, with that done, we should be able to take this really fast, drop it down here, and it works, okay? There are a few things that I want to cover off right here. 1, 3 is a magic number. What happens if they want 4? What happens if they want 5? What happens if they want a completely different string, which is kind of a magic thing, right? What we've done here, we've hard-coded this. If they want to change any of these, we're in trouble, right? We need to go in and do the work. So what I advise is taking this, going up here, just right where we added that other default argument. So right here, I'm going to add an extra thing. It's going to be called trunk suffix. Seems like a good one. Pasting that in, and now we can use this right here. Okay, we can replace the ellipses with trunk suffix, trunk suffix. It's getting to be a mouthful, but there it is. We can also replace the 3 with trunk suffix dot length. I can see that word is just not working in my mouth, but trunk suffix dot length. Okay. So we get the length, which is 3, right? That's what we wanted in here anyway. And we subtract that from the length of 50. So 50 minus 3 is 47. Brilliant. If we are over that, then we end it. Okay. Or if we are going to be over that, then we end it and kick it out the door. And this should still work. The final piece here. Okay. Let's review really fast before I do my final thing here. We created this object, right? Is this the best way to do this? I don't know, right? I tried it with arrays. I tried it with maps. This is simple enough. It gets the job done, okay? Without knowing more specifically how they want this data ordered and, again, what the default is, it's hard to know. So keep it simple, right? We don't need to do anything too fancy here, and that's what we did. We made it so that we can pass in a different length or a different suffix as needed, right? Keeping it flexible. And then we did a loop, right? Where we figured out what our value was. And with this, the call out here is, why not entries, right? I could have just got the key and the value all in one move, right? Well, at least for me, I found that this, just doing entries was slower than breaking it apart into 2 steps like this. Because inside of here, you needed to get that index, so you need to access indexes, and then afterwards you need to access a different index. So there's a bit of time in finding the index and bringing it back, okay? Whereas with this, keeping it as keys, we just get the key and then we use that key, and that is very fast. I actually found that it's about like almost twice as fast in testing. So again, you might want to test that. But in my tests, this was much faster than just doing entries. So keep that in mind. And it works. It gets the job done. Okay. Again, moving down. So we got the key, we got the value, which is the more important part. And then we tested to see if that value was going to put us over, right? If it was going to put us over, we ended it by adding our suffix and breaking out of the loop. So we're done, right? And that's why we use the for loop. And then we just return that. Great. If we got past this if statement, then we incremented the count and incremented the string and did it. Okay. And again, once it got there, it all just worked. One thing that I want to play with here before wrapping up, okay, is something called a proxy. And maybe you've heard about this. This is, I don't know if this is the right place for it, but I do like it, okay? I do like it a lot. A proxy is a way where we capture an object or an array or something like that, and every time we update it, we're able to run our own code before that insertion happens or that get happens or whatever it is. We're able to do stuff. So it kind of makes the thing reactive, right? And in fact, a lot of frameworks use proxies behind the scenes to maintain state, right? So very handy to know. We're going to call this values, plural, okay? And we're going to go new proxy, and we're going to send in measures. Now, by itself, that does nothing, right? All we've done is created a new object based on measures, okay? It's kind of a special object, though. And what we can do is we can pass in something called traps, okay? And there are lots. There's a has trap for if you go and search for a key, you want to know if measures has FJRT space. Well, when you do that, it might run some other code behind the scenes. Or if you are changing something or inserting something or doing some other stuff, okay? We can do all that. Now for today, we're only going to use get, okay? And get, what we do is we pass in methods, okay? Which is why it's an object. It's got methods on it. Brilliant. But get takes a few things. It takes the target, which is technically our measures, right? That's measures right there. It takes the property we want to access, right? So one of these guys right here, and you'll see in a second, that property can be anything, okay? And that's where the flexibility comes in. And then of course the receiver, and I say of course thinking that you know what that is, but the receiver is generally the proxy itself. So if you needed to do stuff to the proxy itself, you have access to that, okay? We aren't going to do anything with that. We're just going to pass it down, and you'll see that in a second. So right here, we have an if statement. We want to check if prop is in target, okay? So if it is, if we get this whole string, okay, that's important. We aren't just getting a piece, we're getting the whole thing. So if prop is in target, then we return, okay? And we're just going to return the value. I don't know why we would do this, but it feels very safe to me. So let's stay on the course. We're going to reflect. Notice that reflect is a capital R, okay? Dot get. This should match the trap. So get. If we were using set, it would be reflect.set. If we were using has, reflect.has. They're all in there, okay? And reflect basically says, okay, I'm ready to go to the actual object and do stuff, okay? That's the relationship in a very simplified way, okay? Now right here, we pass in all these arguments, right? So we can go, boom. If you wanted to, you can take this and go arguments, right? That just takes all the arguments, passes it in. I like seeing it, right? I'm not against that, so I'll leave it like this for now. Then we have our else, and this is where our magic happens today, okay? So for our magic, we're going to take all of this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to bring it up, paste it in, make sure that the alignment is where I need it to be. Excellent. So the key, object keys, measures. Well, it's not measures anymore, is it? It is target, okay? And then on find, we can leave measure as is because that's our callback argument, right? But we aren't finding letter anymore. We're finding prop, okay? And then down here, instead of all of this, we return. So I can actually grab this right here. Return target key receiver, okay? Getting rid of all of this, okay? And at this point, what it'll say is it'll say, oh, go find the key. It's going to find one of these, the whole thing. And then it's going to use that as its reflected prop, which means that we are going to get the value. And the beauty of this is that even though I've added more code here, I can test against this code as well. But even though I've done that, I can get rid of this, okay? And go value equals values letter, okay? So at this point, I'm passing in a single letter to my object, sort of, right? And getting the value of whatever that group of letters is, okay? And this should work, okay? Again, we, as front-end developers, I don't get to use Proxy that much. There are a few things that I wish we used more. If you were using this for proxies, they're really good for things like shopping carts. If you're doing a JavaScript-based shopping cart and you're not using a framework, right? If you weren't using a framework, then you could have your shopping cart as an object or an array or something like that. And then you could create a proxy where every time you added something to the cart, it automatically ran a re-render on your DOM, right? As an example. So very flexible, very reactive. And that's what I love about proxies. So if you get the chance, if you're in real work and you're like, I wonder if proxy would work here, give it a try. You might just surprise yourself, right? Or you might just overcomplicate things, which is probably what I did here. But it was fun, right? Sometimes we just have a fun moment. But yeah, this is it for today. So again, we took that string, we looped over it, we got the value, and then checked to see if we were at our truncating length yet, which we defaulted to 50, right? Again, if you try to make it work with 60, it's not going to, okay? It's just not going to. But we did that. We also made the suffix a thing, right? Where that works just magically. So absolutely no magic numbers inside of the function unless you count to 0. Do you count to 0? I don't know. Let me know in the comments, right? But this is how I would do it. And then, of course, we played a little bit with Proxy. I don't know if I would use Proxy here, but it was fun, right? And it just works. It kind of makes it a little bit more flexible. We can still access measures, or we can access this values proxy and use it either way. So what do you think, right? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you find a different way that you want to share? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, today this has been Truncate the Text 2, and I will see you tomorrow.